Hi there, fourth graders. We're going to continue working on comparing fractions this week. I said comparing, I meant multiplying. We're going to continue multiplying fractions this week, and we're going to start with part one today on multiplying fractions, focusing on multiples of fractions. You already know what multiples are, we've worked with them before, but in case you forget, it's important to know what that word means mathematically. Multiples are the numbers that we say when we skip count by or multiply by any given number or factor. So you learned how to skip count when you were really, really young, and you just called them your count bys or your skip countings, but they are called your multiples. So my multiples of 2 are the same thing as my count bys, my 2's count bys, or the numbers I say when I skip count by 2, or the answers I get when I multiply by 2. So they are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then that number list goes on forever and ever. It's an infinite list because our number list in general, our number system is infinite. It keeps going. So I can keep counting by 2 for forever, and all of those numbers would be considered multiples of 2. I also know my multiples of 5 are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, so on and so on forever and ever and ever until my tongue falls out. So those are the numbers that I say when I skip count by 5. They're also the numbers that I get when I multiply by 5. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, times 4 is 20, times 5 is 25, times 6 is 30, and so on and so on and so on. So I can also find the multiples of my fractions. So let's start with unit fractions. Those are simple. If I was going to skip count by 1/5, it would basically be me adding 1/5 over and over again. So if I started with 1/5 and added another fifth, I would have 2/5. And if I added another fifth, I would have 3/5. And if I added another fifth, I'd have 4/5. And if I added another fifth, I would have 5/5. And if I added another one, I would have 6/5. And so you can see it even goes over 1. It just keeps going. So then I have 7/5, and then I have 8/5, and it just keeps going forever and ever and ever. Same thing with 1/2. If I start with 1/2, then I have 2 halves. Then I have 3 halves. Then I have 4 halves. Then I have 5 halves. And then I have 6 halves. I don't know what's happening with my pen here. Okay. Then I have 7 halves, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on, forever and ever and ever. I don't know if you noticed, but this is basically 1 times 1, 1 times 2, 1 times 3, 1 times 4, 1 times 5, 1 times 6, 1 times 7. That'll just keep going forever. Doesn't have to be unit fractions, though. It could be any fraction. So if I started with 2/10, my first multiple would be 2/10. Add on another 2/10, and I have 4/10. Then I have 6/10. Then I have 8/10. Then I have 10/10. Then I have 12/10, and it keeps going. But that same rule kind of applies. This is 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 5, 2 times 6, keeps going on and on and on forever. So let's do multiples of 3/8. So if I get started, I'm going to start with what I've got, 3/8. Then I have 6/8. Then I have 9/8, 12/8, 15/8. What would be next? 18/8, 21/8, 24/8, 30/8. Do you see how I'm just repeatedly adding each time? So now I'm being asked to list the first 7 multiples of a third. So I'm just starting the list. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3. I also notice that this is basically 7 times 1, right? Should be my last one. Your turn now. Oh, no, let's do one more together. What is the 5th multiple of 2/3? So I'm going to get started. 2/3, 4/3, 6/3, 8/3, 10/3. So that's my 5th multiple. So it should be 5 times 2/3, which is 10/3. Look at that, they match. Your turn. Pause the video, give me the first 5 multiples of 1/4. then come back and check. So that would be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4. Those are the first 5 multiples. Good job. Pause again. What's the 10th multiple of 3/4? We got 3/4, 6. You know what I could do to make this easy on myself? I could just skip count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. And they're all fourths. So that just kind of made it easy for me. If I know my multiples, if I know my math facts, it's pretty easy. So the 10th multiple would be 30/4, and I know that because 3 times 10 equals 30, and that matches. Okay, you're going to go off and you are going to do your first section of your slides. In the very last slide in section 1, it's going to ask you for a secret code word. Something I'm trying out to see if who's watching the videos. So I'm going to know if you watch the video if you're able to come up with the secret code word. Today, that secret code word is at the end of the video. I'm about to tell you what it is. But before I do, I want to tell you that it's not always going to be at the end. It's going to be at different parts of the video every time. So that you have to watch the video to get the code word, because too many people are not watching the videos. So here it is. The secret code word that you need in your slideshow is numerator. Sound it out the best you can. Adios, off to do your slides.